Hello, Paul. How's it going?
Hi, Jacqueline. How are you?
Good, good. What's your background?
My background, I was born in the Soviet Union. Is that what you meant?
What's behind you physically?
Well, it's, let's see. I don't know if you can see the whole thing. See, is it up, is it backwards the
No,
way?
you're good.
Our doctor is available at all times, and it's in English, Yiddish, Polish, and Russian. And it's actually something that used to hang at a DP camp. I'm pretty sure, kind of because over in the corner, it's there's a HIAS sign, which is an organization that helped Jewish refugees resettle.
Wow.
So it's I bought this maybe 30 years ago, maybe a little longer, actually longer ago in Baltimore, the junk shop for I even
Whoa.
remember how much I paid.
How much?
225. But I also bought everything else they had from that collection, so it's all over the house. It's really pretty amazing.
Wow.
That here's something that is, a piece of history, and it's of refugees in America.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I usually have been using another spot in the home and office, but this is now kind of felt like a good background to use again.
Yeah, well, true. But you are painting your house too. I know you had a debacle this morning with your puppy dog.
Yeah. Dogs getting into paint and walking around is really fun.
Leaving
But
footprints on carpet.
that's why we're here. How was your weekend?
My week was good. I This is my second night in Portland, Maine. It looks like the exact same background, but I am in a new apartment, a new state. So yeah, it's really beautiful. It's so blessedly quiet here. I am so happy. There's no traffic noises. It's just birds. I am in heaven. It's amazing.
The Maine is fabulous, and that what a great city.
Yes, yes. I'm very excited to explore more. I got to get my library card tomorrow. That's my first point of action, point of business. So I will take us through last week's headlines. Our cover story was another episode of The Directors, which is a special segment of the Cancer Letter podcast. This is the sort of the angle of The Directors is asking cancer center directors what keeps them up at night. And so this one was no different. We had Candace S. Johnson, President and CEO of Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center, and Jonathan W. Friedberg, Director of University of Rochester Wilmot Cancer Center, on the podcast this time. So definitely a really good episode. I don't want to repeat too much of what we said in the actual Directors podcast, but definitely worth checking out. Really interesting conversation between two upstate New York cancer centers. Claire wrote a story about NIH Director Jay Bhattacharya appearing before the Senate Appropriations Committee to discuss President Trump's proposed NIH budget. Very like all of the hearings, high drama, a lot of emotions flying high with the cuts being proposed and other general upheaval at NIH. We also had a story about the first NCAB meeting since Trump was inaugurated, where Principal Deputy Director Douglas Lowy gave long-awaited inside information on what's happening at NCI. Nothing hugely surprising, I would say, coming out of that, but it was still good to just hear it directly from NCI, since that's been sort of lacking since the inauguration. And then I wrote a story about a recent observational study examining the link between cannabis use disorder and cancer mortality rates, which is pretty interesting. And our cancer policy section was jam-packed with important stories. As always, we covered the widely covered Bethesda Declaration, which was a letter of dissent from NIH employees and Nobel laureates to NIH Director Bhattacharya, as well as other stories in that section. So definitely worth checking out as well. Yeah, lots to talk about, Paul. I know the main thing I wanted to start with, and I talked about this a little bit with you off camera, is the fact that the NCAB meeting, was, recorded. It was virtual. And typically they come up in the past events section on their website a few days later. And it did come up a few days later, the recording, and I was able to catch it and transcribe it and write the story. But now it's nowhere to be found. I don't know why they took it down. And also technically that NCAB meeting that day was supposed to have 2 meetings. The second one was very brief. It basically just had a second set of remarks from Dr. Lowy. So I don't think we missed anything crazy, but that one never appeared on the website at all in terms of the recording. So just kind of a weird situation. I've never seen that before.
There was supposed to be 2 meetings back to back because one that was missed, and so statutory sort of requirement was to have that. And it is a chartered advisory committee covered by Federal Advisory Committees Act, and it's also an advisory committee that is a part of NCI, a part of the National Cancer Act. So the idea that, and it's not like we were lazy, which we most certainly were not. And, I would have been there had it been an in-person meeting because I love going to those meetings. But the reason it was all virtual. So the only record of this thing doesn't seem to be accessible. Maybe a few years ago, really a few months ago, we would have made a big deal out of this because this is record. This is public record. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We may yet. I mean, we're going to follow up.
Yeah,
I don't know how big a deal we can make out of it. I just remember messing with the record. Like, for example, there was this one very famous, I think it's famous in my mind, case where an NCI director who was a hell of a great one. I don't want to repeat the whole story, but he dropped an F-bomb. Okay, great. It was a perfectly reasonable thing to do under the circumstances. But what made that a story for us is that the F-bomb and the whole statement around it was how somehow taken out of the of the audio.
Wow.
So we do watch these things and we do care about these things, and I think the world needs to have these things.
Yeah.
So having an entire 2 meetings missing, I sure as heck hope they find them. But again, this is something that's of great importance to us and probably not many others.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's other
bigger problems.
Well, that's the thing.
So, and you have to kind of select what you want to spend your time on, and I think we did not make enough noise. I think it becomes a bigger story this week. So in case somebody from NIH is watching this, they might want to know, be advised that we're going to do a story. And if there's anyone there who can respond to them, who is still employed by NIH, we will ask.
Yes.
So.
Totally. Unless it shows up, which would be the ideal situation.
Oh, God, that would be wonderful.
Yes.
Even if the thing is not really that important. I think the first meeting, the one you wrote about, was actually quite important. So maybe you could talk about it.
Dr. Lowy had his introductory remarks, and that's where he sort of touched on some of the things that are on everybody's mind. He discussed indirect costs, but, it's nothing sort of out of the ordinary from what I understand. He said that NCI will continue to use previously negotiated and approved indirect cost rates, except for awards under which F&A costs are reimbursed at a fixed rate, which again, again, I'm kind of new to this, but Paul said that you said that was kind of business as usual, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the NIH budget and how they were sort of going to work with the potentially limited budget. He said that that's basically the thing that they're working on right now. They have 30 plus leadership members of the leadership team, like literally just trying to work through that. So he did say within that the extramural colleagues are definitely sort of a priority there, and that ultimately a vast majority of funding goes to them. So again, nothing, crazy, but just good to hear from, his perspective. And then more of like an administrative question, but I think still interesting, again, sort of in line with what we're saying in general with like, having this on record. But John Carpton, the chair of NCAB and who is also the director of City of Hope Comprehensive Cancer Center, he asked if other future NCAB meetings are going to be like the one that was held on, I think it was Tuesday. Yeah. Because it was very abbreviated. There was no legislative report. It just didn't really look like a typical NCAB meeting. So he was wondering if, is this the future of NCAB meetings, or is it going to be sort of return to normal at some point? And Lowy really just didn't have a solid answer at this point. I think everything's up in the air, but he did mention that legislative activities may be sort of centralized to more of an NIH umbrella rather than just NCI. So maybe that will be not necessarily part of the NCAB meetings going forward. But again, we don't know for sure at this point. Something interesting that happened is that there was a formation of a new NCAB ad hoc working group in the wake of 3 Federal Advisory Committee Act committees. That's not a typo or anything. That's not a mistake. That's actually what it's called. FACA. Yep. In the wake of the elimination of these committees, Dr. Lowy said that it might be useful to have a potentially larger group of people available for reviewing new concepts. So the BSA, the Board of Scientific Advisors, was one of those committees that was eliminated, and this sort of reviewing new concepts was typically under their purview. But still not a huge change. The NCAB is still responsible for submitting, the actual recommendations and voting on these concepts, but they'll just have more sort of advice and insight from this ad hoc working group that is being formed. That's what he said, at least.
Which is important. Peer review is the most important thing there is. The opposite of peer review is favoritism and cronyism. So it would be very nice to have that. It was also interesting in the story that Dr. Lowy cited the cancer statistics, which was, for some reason, that's kind of a controversial thing to do these days. It's a measure of the times that we can't measure the times.
Yeah. He said that the 3-decade decrease in cancer mortality rates has continued to the most recent year that we have data, which is 2023.
There are registries within CDC, and I think we really need to just look at it in a comprehensive manner, because there's also some stuff happening at the VA.
Yeah.
So pretty soon if this goes forward, which I don't know if it will or won't, depends on Congress, we might actually not have cancer statistics, and that would be reliable. And the United States has had the cancer statistics collected within the United States are the envy of the world. So that would be a big loss.
Yeah.
So we'll be fighting an unknown enemy, and I'm not so sure I understand why.
Yeah.
Ours is not to guess, but it certainly is not something that makes any sense to me, at least. I don't know if it makes sense to you. Does it?
Imagine if I said yes. I was like, it makes total sense.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yes, of course. Get rid of the data. Well, I mean, on the first day, President Trump cited data that appeared to have been kind of interpreted, I guess, for the lack of a better word. Cooked is the word. Thank you.
You're welcome.
In Wuhan, China.
Yeah.
So that seemed significant, that an executive order would feature Wuhan fried data.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably very significant.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, that's definitely both me and Claire have sort of stories about cancer registries in the works. That's definitely something important to cover. Like you said, though, Paul, there's just so much to cover and you have to sort of pick. I mean, not even pick, like we are picking this, but it's just a matter of, time in the day to write all of it down. So
you actually ended up pulling an all-nighter, I suspect, on Thursday to Friday.
Not quite an all-nighter, but close. Yeah, I've been doing that pretty regularly at this point. But we have to write it. Like, I don't know. It's the first time in my journalistic career, very short journalistic career, that it feels like we really have to be writing this stuff down. We have to be recording it. It's really of, I don't know, like people's lives are at stake, And I don't know. It's definitely a motivating factor. It keeps me up to write, which I'm happy for.
What else have we missed?
I think that's it, honestly, Paul. I think we're in good shape. I think we covered the issue pretty well. If you want to hear more or read more, definitely check it out. There's a lot more detail in the issue. But other than that, just
well, I did think of something.
Okay.
Last week, one of the reasons we were all really shorthanded is that the whole team met in Washington in the Edward R. Murrow room at the National Press Building.
Yes.
And because we won a bunch of awards.
Yay.
Like you won an award for investigative.
Yeah.
Which is no small thing.
Yeah, and I'm very excited.
I won something. And
you won photography, right? Photography
which
story?
Which is hilarious, but it wasn't my photography, but I did write a photo story to go with the photography about the attack on the pediatric hospital in Kiev.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and Claire won against you, Paul. That was the funniest.
Yeah, that was great. We were up against each other. It was great. I was rooting for her. And she was not rooting for me, I'm sure. She's not here to defend herself. So I guess, Jacquelyn, this is becoming a Jewish goodbye where everybody says goodbye and nobody leaves.
Yeah.
So
shall we say goodbye properly? Should we do an Irish goodbye? We can just...
This is a great time to be a journalist.
As always. Thanks, Paul.